Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. It was a bright, slightly chilly morning in New York's bustling Midtown. The streets teemed with yellow taxis and hurried passers-by. Inside First National Bank, the air was thick with murmurs, the clatter of keyboards, and the rustling of papers. Every teller window was overflowing with impatient customers, while employees tried to manage the crowd with strained professionalism. Among them was Karen Mitchell, a woman in her 40s, elegantly dressed in a gray suit and stiletto heels, who walked with a confident stride. Her stern gaze and authoritative tone left no doubt, she was used to the world bending to her will. She approached the counter with a slight frown, visibly irritated by the wait. At that moment, the main door opened with a soft click, and a cool breeze stirred the curtains. All eyes instinctively turned toward the entrance. And there, in his understated yet elegant suit, walked Sadio Mané, the global football star, with an aura of calm and dignity that instantly filled the room. Some customers recoiled, others smiled, impressed to see the celebrity in person. Karen, without thinking, blurted out a contemptuous remark aloud. "Oh, look who's here, the player who thinks he's entitled to everything." His voice echoed in the hall, attracting everyone's attention. Murmurs multiplied, and the previously tense atmosphere became electric. Sadio, remaining calm, looked up at her. His face remained impassive, but his gaze, intense and penetrating, seemed to probe Karen from within. The seconds stretched into eternity. The ticket clerks and customers held their breath, unsure how the situation would unfold. While Karen thought she could publicly humiliate him, something about Sadio's composure shook her confidence. Instead of responding with anger or mockery, he approached slowly, with a dignified posture and a slight, measured smile. Then he said, in a calm but firm voice, "Could you repeat what you just said?" Silence fell. Karen felt a shiver run down her spine. For the first time in a long time, she found herself unsettled. The man she had wanted to belittle showed no aggression, only an almost intimidating calm. This moment would become the starting point of a series of events that would forever change his life. Karen Mitchell remained frozen, unable to tear her eyes away from Sadio Mané. Her usual arrogance seemed to have vanished in an instant. The customers nearby watched the scene with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. Some murmured among themselves, "It's Sadio Mané," or "I've never seen anyone remain so calm in the face of an insult." Sadio approached her with measured slowness, each step resonating like an affirmation of his presence. He stood straight, his impeccable suit accentuating the aura of dignity that emanated from him. Then, in a calm but authoritative voice, he repeated, "Could you repeat what you just said?" Karen felt her face burning. The crowd around her seemed to be holding its breath. She wanted to deny it, justify herself, or scream again, but no words came out. Her mind was racing. Why isn't he angry? How dare he remain so calm? Seeing her hesitation, Sadio inclined his head slightly and added, with a slight smile, "I want to understand. I want to hear your words clearly." It wasn't a request, but a subtle challenge. Karen felt a strange tension in her shoulders, as if the entire room were weighing on her. For the first time, she couldn't assert herself through arrogance. The bank employees watched silently, some exchanging worried glances. The nearest teller, Michael Johnson, whispered to his colleague, "She'll probably regret what she said." Karen took a deep breath. Her fingers gripped the edge of her handbag, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a subtle fear, the fear of encountering someone who wouldn't be intimidated. The shock lay not only in the audacity of the insult, but in the impassive reaction of the man she thought she could humiliate. At that precise moment, she understood that this moment would change the course of her day, and perhaps her entire life. Karen Mitchell blinked, still in shock. The air in the First National Bank seemed to thicken, as if time had slowed around them. Sadio Mané, standing before her, showed no sign of anger. On the contrary, his calm and dignity only intensified the humiliation Karen felt, though she dared not admit it. The customers nearby watched the scene, some taking out their phones to discreetly film, sensing that this moment would be shared everywhere on social media. The atmosphere was electric, full of anticipation and tension. Sadio addressed her in a firm but gentle voice. "Karen, you spoke very loudly. I would like to understand what makes you judge me like that." Karen, caught off guard, wanted to retort with a witty remark, but her words caught in her throat. She forced herself to breathe, trying to regain control. I was just saying," she stammered, unable to finish her sentence. Sadio continued calmly. "Do you know what it truly means to succeed in life, and what respect for others means?" Karen felt a lump form in her chest. This wasn't just any football player she was facing, this was a man whose experience and wisdom far surpassed anything she had imagined. She realized she couldn't intimidate him with words. At that moment, a faint murmur rippled through the crowd. "Wow, he's not even getting angry. It's incredible, he's so calm." Karen, who had always been used to dominating those around her with her arrogance and curt tone, felt a shiver of fear and confusion. For the first time, she was facing someone who didn't react like everyone else. Sadio, with a deep and understanding look, added, "Sometimes, arrogance masks fear. I can help you see things differently, if you want." Karen froze, unsure whether to laugh, protest, or accept. But something within her composure compelled her to remain silent, intrigued despite herself. This was the beginning of a confrontation that would not only be verbal, but would touch her heart and mind, forcing her to reflect on her own behavior and values. Karen Mitchell was still in shock. The arrogance that had always defined her was colliding with a reality she had never known. Facing Sadio Mané, she was powerless. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but no words came out. Silence hung heavy in the lobby of the First National Bank, where all eyes were now fixed on them. Sadio, noticing her hesitation, took a step forward and said softly, "I see you're angry, or perhaps confused. Rather than continue like this, why not sit down for a moment? I think we have a lot to learn from each other." Karen blinked in disbelief. Sitting with the man she had insulted just seconds before? The idea seemed inconceivable. Yet, a part of her, intrigued and curious, urged her on. She followed Sadio to a quiet corner of the bank, near a secluded desk where the morning light fell softly on the tiled floor. Sadio sat down opposite her, his hands clasped on the table. He had a look that seemed to pierce her defenses, and Karen felt a strange sensation. For the first time, she was truly seen, not judged for her appearance, but for what she was inside. "Karen," he began calmly, "you seem to have a lot of strength, but I can see that you are often in conflict with the world around you. I am not here to humiliate you, but to share something I have learned throughout my life and career." Karen, though anxious, felt her curiosity growing. She had expected a verbal confrontation, not a life lesson. Sadio continued. "You know, success isn't measured solely by money or power. True success lies in remaining humble, respectful, and helping others." Karen bit her lip, unable to respond immediately. The arrogant woman who thought she could dominate Sadio found herself facing a man whose simplicity and magnanimity dazzled her. Then, in an unexpected gesture, Sadio took an envelope out of his suit and gently placed it in front of her. "I heard about your project to help young people in difficulty. I would like to contribute." Karen blinked in surprise. Her project, which she had barely mentioned to a few close friends, had just caught the attention of one of the most influential and respected men in the world. She felt her heart race. Part of her wanted to refuse out of pride, but another part understood that she had just been given an opportunity she never could have imagined. This simple gesture changed everything. The initial confrontation, which could have ended in humiliation or conflict, transformed into an opportunity for change. Karen began to understand that this man she had wanted to belittle had just taught her a life lesson she would never forget. Karen Mitchell sat in silence, the envelope placed on the desk in front of her, her mind swirling with confusion and curiosity. Sadio Mané, sitting opposite her, watched her face intently, as if he could read her every thought. Then, in a calm but penetrating voice, he began to speak. "Karen," he said softly, "you judged me without knowing me, as many do. But I'll tell you something, life isn't meant to humiliate or belittle others. It's meant to be learned, to grow, and to give." Karen felt a shiver run down her spine. She had never heard anyone speak to her like that, not reproachfully, but with an authority that commanded respect. Sadio continues. "I started in small streets, with almost nothing. Every day was a challenge. I experienced hunger, doubt, mockery, but I learned that every difficulty is a lesson, and that every success comes from perseverance and respect for others." Karen, her eyes wide open, listened attentively. For the first time, she realized that her own life, filled with arrogance and competition, had made her forget the essentials, respect and humility. "The world will always judge you," Sadio continued. "Some will treat you badly, others will admire you. But what matters is how you choose to respond, with anger, or with dignity and generosity." Karen felt her shoulders relax slightly. Every word Sadio said resonated deeply within her, awakening an awareness she had long ignored. She remembered all the times she had sought to impress or dominate others, without ever questioning whether she was doing any good for those around her. Sadio finishes. "Karen, you can be rich in money, in power, in appearance, but if you are poor in heart and in respect, then you are truly poor. Arrogance destroys more than it builds. Do you understand what I mean?" Karen lowered her eyes, unable to respond immediately. Her pride screamed, but an inner voice told her that Sadio was right. For the first time, she felt humility creeping into her, gentle yet powerful, like a new wind sweeping away the clouds of her pride. This moment was not just a confrontation, but a turning point. The woman who had wanted to humiliate a famous player had just met a man capable of transforming an insult into a profound life lesson. Karen Mitchell remained seated, still reeling from Sadio's words. Every word he had spoken had struck a direct blow to her pride, but instead of leaving her paralyzed, a new curiosity was beginning to emerge. She would never have imagined that a mere football player could look at her with such calm and understanding. Then, Sadio made a gesture that left her completely surprised. He took a thick, carefully sealed envelope out of his jacket and gently placed it in front of her. "Karen," he said, "I heard about your project to help disadvantaged youth across the city. I know it's not easy to make something worthwhile happen when you lack resources. I want to help you." Karen felt her heart leap. She knew Sadio Mané's reputation, a man not only famous and rich, but also generous and influential. The mere fact that he was interested in her project overwhelmed her with conflicting emotions, disbelief, excitement, and even a touch of shame for her earlier words. She stammered. I don't know what to say." Sadio smiled, a calm and sincere smile. "You don't need to say anything now. All I want is for your project to succeed and make a real difference." Karen carefully took the envelope. Inside, she found not only a substantial check, but also supporting documents for her project, including a letter from Sadio offering his help in making contacts and obtaining additional resources. A mixture of gratitude and respect settled within her. The arrogant woman who had just insulted a famous player had just received a unique opportunity, and she understood that it was not simply about money, it was an act of trust and mentorship. The customers nearby, having observed the whole scene, murmured in admiration. Some whispered, "Incredible, he hasn't just forgiven her, he's actually helping her. That's what greatness is." Karen, her eyes shining, felt her arrogance melt away like snow in the sun. For the first time, she understood the power of respect and generosity. Sadio's gesture wasn't just material, it came from the heart, and it marked the beginning of her transformation. She finally stood up, unable to contain her emotions. "Thank you, really, thank you. I don't know how to thank you." Sadio, with his usual calm, replied. "Do it by succeeding in your project and helping others. That's how you make the world a better place." This simple exchange, which could have remained ordinary, would change Karen Mitchell's life forever. She had just understood that true greatness lies in generosity and respect, not in arrogance or power. Karen Mitchell left First National Bank clutching the envelope to her chest, but her mind was far from focused on figures or projects. Every step she took echoed in her head, repeating Sadio's words, "You can be rich in money, but poor in heart." Sitting in her car, the engine purring softly, she reread the letter that accompanied the check. Sadio's words seemed etched on every page, speaking of perseverance, respect, and generosity. Karen felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of gratitude, shame, and inner awakening. She thought back to all the times she had used her money or status to intimidate or dominate others. Every forced smile, every contemptuous remark, every moment she had sought to shine at the expense of others came flooding back to her. A heavy sense of guilt washed over her. Yet, instead of paralyzing her, this guilt transformed into a new energy. Karen understood that, even though she had made mistakes, she could change. She could use her resources and influence to do something truly positive, not to impress or belittle others. She looked at the envelope again and murmured, almost to herself, "Maybe this is it, my chance to really do something good." For the first time in years, Karen felt a surge of genuine humility. She understood that true strength lies not in money or power, but in the ability to recognize one's mistakes, to learn, and to help others. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Karen felt a profound turning point in her life. That simple moment, just a few hours earlier, with Sadio Mané, had sparked a change that no insult or pride could reverse. For the first time, she was no longer the arrogant woman who thought she could dominate the world. She was a woman ready to listen, to learn, and to transform her life, and perhaps the lives of others. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Karen Mitchell. The project she had long dreamed of launching but had put aside due to a lack of resources was now in full swing. Thanks to the grant and the support of Sadio Mané, she was able to rent a suitable space, recruit skilled volunteers, and establish partnerships with other local organizations. Every day, Karen surprised herself. The once arrogant and demanding woman became patient, attentive, and inspiring to those around her. She discovered the joy of leading not with authority or intimidation, but with encouragement and respect. One morning, while she was supervising the installation of equipment in the community center, she received a call from Sadio. "Hello Karen, how are the preparations going?" he asked, his voice warm and full of kindness. "Everything is going very well," she replied, smiling. "I never thought I could do all this. Thank you again for your support." Sadio laughed softly. "You've done the hardest part. I've only given you a helping hand. You're the one who makes this project shine." These words resonated deeply within Karen. She understood that her transformation depended not only on Sadio's help, but on her own capacity to change. Every act of generosity and respect she offered others brought her closer to the person she truly wanted to be. The first young people began to arrive at the center, curious and enthusiastic. Karen felt an intense emotion wash over her as she saw their eyes shining with hope and confidence. She realized that this project, which she had long considered impossible, now had the power to transform the lives of many people. For the first time in a long time, Karen Mitchell felt completely content. The arrogant, proud woman was gone. In her place stood a humble, generous woman, determined to use her talents and resources for the good of others. And as the sun rose over the city, illuminating the community center and the enthusiastic faces of the young people, Karen knew that she had just taken a decisive step toward a new life, a life guided by humility, respect, and generosity. The big day had finally arrived. The community center, the brainchild of Karen Mitchell and supported by Sadio Mané, was about to be officially inaugurated. A crowd of young people, parents, journalists, and curious onlookers had gathered in front of the building. Colorful banners fluttered in the wind, announcing the opening of the Hope Center, a place dedicated to education, sports activities, and support for disadvantaged youth. Karen stood at the entrance, dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit. Her face reflected a mixture of emotion and pride. She was no longer the arrogant woman who had insulted Sadio a few weeks earlier. In her place stood a humble leader, inspired by the generosity and wisdom of the man she had come to deeply respect. Sadio arrived, warmly greeting the young people and guests. The journalists, seeing the global star accompanying a visibly transformed woman, immediately understood that this inauguration was not simply an ordinary event. During her speech, Karen took a deep breath. Thank you all for being here today. This center is not just a place to learn or have fun. It symbolizes what we can achieve when we put aside ego and arrogance to work with respect, humility, and generosity. I would like to thank Sadio Mané, whose support and trust made this dream possible. The crowd applauded warmly. Sadio approached and added, Karen did all the hard work. My role was simply to believe in her and in this project. What we see today is the result of perseverance, respect, and a sincere desire to change things. Karen felt an intense emotion rising within her. She realized that this day symbolized not only the center's success, but also her own transformation. The murmurs of the guests and the flashes of the cameras underscored the significance of the moment. Parents and children came to thank her, and she understood that her past arrogance no longer had a place in her life. Looking at Sadio, Karen murmured, I can never thank you enough. Sadio smiled, humble as always. Do it by helping these young people achieve their dreams. That's true gratitude. That day, Karen Mitchell fully understood that arrogance and contempt could be transformed into opportunities for growth and generosity. And as the sun bathed the center in golden light, she knew that her life had just taken an irreversible turn. A few weeks after the Hope Center's inauguration, Karen Mitchell found herself alone in her office, surrounded by documents and development plans for the center. The quiet of the afternoon allowed her to reflect deeply on everything that had happened since her meeting with Sadio Mané. She thought back to his arrogance, his insults, and his domineering behavior at the bank. In the past, she would have dismissed these memories as insignificant or blamed others. But now, every impulsive gesture and every cruel word returned to her with almost painful clarity. For the first time, Karen understood that her own arrogance had been an obstacle, not only for others, but also for herself. If she had continued down that path, she would have missed this opportunity to transform her life and the lives of the young people at the center. The karma of her past behavior manifested itself unexpectedly. Instead of suffering the negative consequences of her actions, she met Sadio, a man capable of turning her mistake into a unique opportunity. She smiled, recalling Sadio's generous gesture, his patience, and his ability to respond to the insult with dignity and encouragement. Karen understood that the true return of karma was not punishment, but learning and the opportunity for change. Her eyes fell upon the letters and drawings sent by the children at the center. Every word, every smile on those pages reminded her that her transformation had a real and tangible impact. She realized that her initial arrogance had paradoxically paved the way for something much greater, a project that touched lives and transformed her as well. Karen murmured to herself, if I had continued to behave like that, I would never have gotten here. Thank you for changing my life. She understood that true power lies not in status, money, or control, but in the ability to learn from one's mistakes, to reinvent oneself, and to do good for others. This positive karma, born from her own journey and Sadio's generosity, had offered her a lesson she would never forget. From that day forward, Karen fully committed herself to continuing her work with humility and compassion, aware that true success is measured not by what one possesses, but by what one gives to others. Several years had passed since that fateful day at First National Bank. The Hope Center, born from a tentative project and the unexpected support of Sadio Mané, had become a beacon for hundreds of underprivileged children and teenagers. Its educational, sports, and arts programs had transformed countless lives, and the center was renowned throughout the city for its positive impact. Karen Mitchell, once arrogant and ruthless in the business world, had become a respected figure in the community. Her face now reflected serenity, gratitude, and determination. She still remembered the day she had insulted Sadio and the life lesson he had taught her. Every decision she made at the center was guided by that lesson: humility, respect, and generosity. Sadio, true to his promise, continued to support the center, appearing at key events and motivating the young people to believe in themselves. Their relationship had evolved, from initial misunderstanding to a solid friendship, based on mutual respect and trust. At a special ceremony celebrating the center's 5th anniversary, Karen addressed an enthusiastic crowd. "A few years ago, I would have laughed if someone had told me I would be here today, celebrating this center and these young people. But life sometimes offers us unexpected lessons. I have learned that arrogance never leads anywhere, and that true greatness lies in the ability to learn, to reinvent oneself, and to help others." Sadio stepped forward to stand beside him and added, "Karen has done an incredible job. This center is the result of her perseverance and commitment. I am proud to have supported her and to see how she has transformed her life and the lives of so many others." The crowd applauded with emotion, and Karen felt a tear roll down her cheek. She was no longer the arrogant woman she had been. She had become a symbol of transformation, resilience, and generosity. As the sun set, bathing the center in golden light, Karen and Sadio stood side by side, watching the children play and laugh. This perfect moment encapsulated everything that had changed: hatred transformed into respect, arrogance into humility, and a simple encounter in a bank into a lasting impact on the lives of hundreds of people. Karen whispered to Sadio, a smile on her lips, "Thank you, for showing me true greatness." Sadio replied simply, humbly, "Greatness lies not in what we receive, but in what we give." And so, the woman who had insulted a famous player became a living example of the power of transformation, proving that even the most humiliating mistakes can become stepping stones to something extraordinary.